Today, we're taking a deep dive into the mind of an architectural revolutionary, Rem Koolhaas. We're gonna unpack his incredible system for turning the absolute mess of the modern world into a source of unbelievable clarity and power. Just let that sink in for a second. This single idea, it's the key to everything. It's not about fighting chaos or pretending it doesn't exist. No, it's about mastering it. It's about looking at a total traffic jam not as a problem to be solved, but as the raw material for a work of genius. And the person who can do that, well, they hold all the cards. All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going on a 6-part journey. We'll start with how this radical idea was even born. Then we'll trace it back to its origins in total urban chaos. We'll decode the philosophy he created, break down the actual system he used to make it happen, see its legacy written across the global skyline, and then, this is the best part, we'll figure out how you can apply this very same pattern to your own work. Let's get into it. So, how on earth does somebody get to a place where they think chaos is the answer? Well, it starts by rejecting pretty much everything the establishment holds dear. And for an architect, that means throwing out the obsession with pristine, perfect beauty. Okay, check this out. In 1995, when every other famous architect is putting out these glossy coffee table books of their most beautiful buildings, Koolhaas drops this absolute brick of a book. It's called SMLXL. And it was just this massive, chaotic brain dump of essays, data, and pictures about junk food, shopping malls, and urban sprawl. Everybody else was desperately trying to protect the purity of their designs from the real world. Koolhaas, he did the exact opposite. He threw open the doors and invited all that mess right in. He decided he was going to weaponize it. And this right here is the core of it all. This is the Koolhaas pattern. It's this wild, counterintuitive law. As the chaos on the outside gets bigger and crazier, your concept on the inside has to become exponentially clearer and stronger to handle it. It's not about finding a tidy little solution for a messy problem. It's about having a core idea so robust that it can literally absorb all the mess and use it as fuel. But, a worldview this radical doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. To really get the pattern, you have to understand the man. And his mindset wasn't some academic theory he cooked up in a library. Nope. It was forged in the fire of real-world disruption and fueled by this deep sense of being an outsider. So before he was ever an architect, he was a kid growing up during the Indonesian Revolution. I mean, imagine that. You're not seeing a stable, orderly world. You're watching a nation get torn apart and rebuilt right in front of your eyes. That teaches you that there's never just one story. Then he becomes a journalist and the screenwriter. This is so important. He learns to see a city not as a static site to put a building on, but as a living, breathing script, full of conflict and competing stories. And finally, when he gets to architecture school in London, while everyone else is obsessed with form and beauty, he becomes the quiet researcher in the back, just relentlessly asking, yeah, but how does it work? And this is the part you really gotta get. His whole early career was this deliberate process of unlearning. He actively fought against the impulse to be an artist, a sculptor who just follows their intuition. He saw that as a trap. Instead, he forced himself to rely only on data, on research, on the cold, hard logic of the systems he was studying. He was building this internal fortress, not of style, but of pure analysis. He actually came up with this term, junk space, for all the messy, leftover parts of modern life. Airports, shopping malls, weird corporate lobbies. And while most people just run from that stuff, he forced himself to stand right in the middle of it. He would just observe it, document it, and live in it until its hidden logic started to reveal itself. This wasn't some fun exercise. It was this incredibly disciplined, almost spiritual practice of finding clarity where nobody else was even willing to look. And out of that discipline, a whole new philosophy started to form. Okay, so this is the moment the struggle turns into a real strategy. All those experiences as an outsider and a journalist, they didn't just make him different. They gave him a brand new language for architecture. A philosophy he called Programmatic Alchemy. I mean, what a statement, right? Programmatic alchemy is the absolute core of his thinking. And program is just a fancy word for what a building does, all the activities happening inside. Koolhaas believed the architect's real job wasn't to decorate the box. It was to be an alchemist of the activities inside it, to mix them up, smash them together, and create brand new energy. To him, worrying about beauty was just a distraction from the real goal, the much more powerful goal, pure utility. And this whole philosophy is powered by a mindset he called Radical Pragmatism. It's this deep commitment to reality no matter how messy or uncomfortable it is. It means you don't jump to a solution. You don't try to force your preconceived idea onto a problem. No, you stay in the mess, you analyze all the forces at play until the diagram of the solution just emerges, so logically and so clearly that it becomes undeniable. And this just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you have the traditional architect. They're obsessed with form, beauty, purity. Their goal is to sculpt a perfect object on a static site. And on the other side, you have Koolhaas. He's obsessed with the program, the logic, the data. He sees the city as a dynamic script, and his goal? It's not to sculpt an object. It's to engineer social collisions. It's a total inversion of what architecture was supposed to be about. So look, having a philosophy is great, but how do you actually use it project after project without selling out? Koolhaas didn't just have a mindset. He built a rigorous, repeatable system to turn that philosophy into buildings. This is how he stayed in control. So here's the system, and it's just a masterclass. First up, the AMO research audit. Every single project starts not with a pretty sketch, but with a deep research dive from his in-house think tank. Next, that research leads to a concept diagram, a super simple, logical drawing that shows the solution. The data dictates the form, period. Third, and this one is wild, internal competition. Different teams in his office would come up with competing ideas and then brutally attack each other's work. This meant only the most logical, battle-tested idea would survive. And finally, cross-programming. This was his signature move, deliberately forcing things that don't belong together into the same space just to see what kind of new energy it creates. So you see, his creative process wasn't about waiting for some muse to show up. It was an act of systematic, analytical saturation. It was a disciplined refusal to just trust his own gut. While everyone else was looking for inspiration, he was just looking for data. He truly believed that if you do the research deeply enough, the solution doesn't need to be invented, it becomes completely inevitable. So what does a system like this actually produce? What does it look like? Well, the answer is written in steel and glass all over the world, and it has fundamentally changed our idea of what a building can even be. I mean, just look at the proof. The Seattle Central Library, it's not just a place for books. It's a physical diagram of how we consume information in the 21st century. And then you have the CCTV headquarters in Beijing, this insane looping structure that completely rethinks what a skyscraper is. These buildings aren't just cool shapes, they are arguments. They are research papers built out of steel and glass, proving his thesis over and over again. And that really is his ultimate legacy. Koolhaas just shattered the old myth that order means symmetry and tidiness and predictable forms. He proved that true, resilient order comes from a deep underlying logic, a logic that can embrace all the messiness and contradiction of the real world and still produce something incredibly powerful and coherent. He gave us a whole new definition of order. All right, now this is where the story turns from his to yours, because the Koolhaas pattern isn't just for architects building skyscrapers. It's a framework for anyone who feels overwhelmed by the complexity of their work, their industry, or their life. It's a guide for finding your own clarity in the chaos. Seriously, think about this for a second. What's the messy, complicated situation in your job or your life that you keep trying to organize or just ignore? What if, instead of fighting it, you just dove right into the middle of it? What if you committed to understanding its underlying forces so completely that the one single elegant move became totally obvious? Here's how you can actually do it. First, find your personal junk space. That one project, that problem, that relationship that just feels messy and incoherent. Second, stop trying to organize the surface level stuff. Stop rearranging the deck chairs. Instead, start diagramming. Map out the real forces at play, the incentives, the fears, the constraints. And third, raise your level of pragmatism. Commit to seeing reality for what it is, not what you wish it was. Your goal is not to manage the mess, it's to master its logic. Because in the end, that's the final lesson from Rem Koolhaas. The truth of any situation, a building, a business, a life, is in its program. It's in what it does and why it does it. And your ability to see that program with total, unvarnished clarity, well, that is the code for your greatness.